Record?
No one else is presenting
Always
the
record.
certification,
Don't believe so.
Chris?
No.
I think Chris said no, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm already certified.
all right.
Thanks, Craig.
Places.
See you later.
That'd be great.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing today?
Good, yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I know it's a little bit late. We only got a couple more presentations. But my name's Eddie Tapia, and today I'm going to present to you on why Chipotle Mexican Grill should launch their new expansion program into sunny South Australia. Here's a little roadmap of what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. First, I'm going to talk to you about Chipotle, who they are, what they are, their core mission statement. Then I'm going to talk about Australia, why I believe it's the best place for them to expand to, some of the benefits of going into the Australian market. Then I'm going to take a look at some of the risks, specifically through Porter's 5 forces, talk about some entry strategies, and final recommendations. Sound good? All right. So quick show of hands, who here knows about Chipotle, is eating at Chipotle, fans of Chipotle? Yeah, as I thought, pretty much everyone here. For those of you that might not be familiar with Chipotle, they're a fast casual Mexican restaurant chain based out of the United States. They have over 4,000 locations, and their expansion projects include the UK, Canada, France, Germany. They've also recently entered the UAE and Kuwait, as well as far to East Asia and Singapore. So Chipotle is doing pretty strong right now. As of 2025, they did about $12 billion in revenue. That's growing at about 5.4% from 2024. So clearly, Chipotle is an established company that's in a growth phase. They're trying to expand and get to new locations and get a new customer base. This is why I think it's a good time for them to expand to somewhere like Australia. One of the things that separates Chipotle from their competitors is their food with integrity. What does this mean? Well, food with integrity kind of talks about how they believe that their food should be ethically sourced, free of GMOs, harmful pesticides, basically good quality organic food sourced locally to the end consumer so that they can have a healthier, more balanced diet. Now, all these aspects fall right in line with the proposed location of Australia. Currently, right now, Australia has about 27 million people. That's comparable to about the population of the state of Florida. But the landmass of Australia is about comparable to the US. So there's not a lot of people and a lot of landmass. Australia is kind of a newer country, so to speak, and when you start to talk in the terms of this, their population's still growing. They're growing at about 2% per year, with and also big numbers of immigration from surrounding countries and even far away. As far as their GDP per capita, they're relatively wealthy, about $64,000 a year, so they have more than enough freed up capital so they can go and buy nice food, nice cars, live a good life. One of the other benefits of Australia is they have a very similar culture to the USA. They're both English-speaking countries. Their cultures are also similar to Canada and the UK. They share the Commonwealth, for those of you that aren't familiar. So going into a culture like this won't be too much of a culture shock for Chipotle. They've already experienced the US and similar cultures. The next big reason that I believe would be a good idea is because Australians are increasingly prioritizing their health and healthy eating habits. They want betterly sourced food, that they can have a more nutritious diet, and they really want to focus on ingredient transparency and sustainability, which all falls under what Chipotle's core mission currently is. Now, let's get into some of the benefits of the Australian market. Right now, they have a proven fast casual dining industry. There's other casual dining industries like McDonald's and other fast foods like that, but specifically there's demand for the Mexican fast casual industry. They have competitors like Guzman y Gomez, Sombrero, and Mad Max Fresh. These are local Australian brands that are established in the markets that are all currently growing. So we could see that in Australia, the Australian public want to eat this fast casual Mexican food because there's 3 main competitors that are all growing. Additionally, as I mentioned previously, Australians do have a good amount of purchasing power. They would be inclined to buy these burrito bowls, buy these tacos and tortillas. They also prioritize healthy eating, as I mentioned before. Now, another aspect that would be beneficial for Chipotle is there's a strong supply chain base down in Australia. So they would be able to source all their ingredients locally close to the consumers, which is really a backbone of who Chipotle is in their core mission statement. Last but not least, I believe that there is high growth potential in Australia. As I mentioned, their GDP is increasing as well as their population. So right now would be a good time for Chipotle to get in and kind of set up operations. Now, that's not without some risks. I want to take a look at the risks for the market through Porter's 5 forces. First here, we have the power of buyers, which is high. There's many different alternatives and low switching costs. If you really aren't in the mood for a burrito, or you just want something else, you just walk out of the burrito shop and go next door. So it's easy to switch. This isn't a high involvement purchase, something like a car or a house. It's very easy to switch. Because of this, it creates a lot of competition in the market. Additionally, the Australian market, although they do have a good amount of spending power, they are quite frugal with their money. They're not just going to throw it away. So Chipotle has to be careful to not price themselves out of the market. Next is the power of suppliers. I think this is a benefit. It's low to moderate. There's plenty of agriculture down in Australia, so they'll easily be able to source all their chicken, beef, produce, you name it, they'll be able to get it. The only con that is available is that Chipotle has certain metrics that they need to hit to keep their sustainability and keep that core mission statement. So it might be a little bit difficult to find producers that are in line with this, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. The threat of rivalry is high. This is very common for any fast food or any fast casual dining industry. There's already competitors like Guzman y Gomez, Zumbrella, and Mad Max Fresh. So they would be penetrating into a market that's already established, but again, this is the fast food industry. This is to come to be expected. Next, we have the threat of new entrants. That's about low to moderate. One of the main reasons why people aren't entering the Australian market is because rent prices are quite high, especially high foot traffic areas where exactly where Chipotle would want to be. They're going to have to pay a premium for those real estates. As well, because the GDP per capita is high, the wages tend to be higher. So it's not like you're getting cheap labor like you can in other countries. You have to pay a premium for it, which kind of keeps a lot of people out. Last but not least, the threat of substitutes very high. It's the food industry, guys. One day, if I don't feel like a burrito, I'm going to go down the store and I'm going to get sushi, Thai, a sandwich, you name it. This just comes with the territory of the industry. Even with these cons, I do believe it's very, very beneficial for Chipotle to enter into Australia. I would recommend them going in with a transnational strategy, focused on high global integration and high local responsiveness. This type of strategy tends to increase efficiency, it reduces cost, and allows for deeper market penetration over time, which I believe would be beneficial for Chipotle. If they are going to move forward with this strategy, I would recommend a joint venture or a strategic alliance. A joint venture is going to take into account acquiring a partner from the host country. In this case, it would be an Australian partner. The only problems with the joint venture is that you tend to lose equity, but what you're losing in equity, you're gaining in market knowledge and help for navigating difficult situations, regulations, culture, so on and so forth. If Chipotle is not open to doing that, then they might want to look at a strategic alliance. With a strategic alliance partner, you don't lose any equity, but their work might be based on a specific contract or a specific time, kind of like consulting. The problem with the strategic alliance is they don't really have any skin in the game. They're going to be more incentivized to kind of keep this contract going, to make up their money, and they might not make the best decisions. With that being said, these are both very viable options with the transnational strategy. Last, I want to talk about standardization and adaptation. Chipotle really needs to make sure that they're strong in their standardization, but not too strong that they lack the flexibility to adapt. Chipotle has to understand when they're going into this market, they're not just another fast casual dining chain, they're not another Mexican grill. They are Chipotle. They are who they are. They're still selling Chipotle bowls, Chipotle burritos. They're not trying to beat these guys on price. They're trying to differentiate themselves from the reputation they already have. In doing so, they need to stay core to their brand identity and keep with that good sourcing. But they don't want to lose out on being flexible to the Australian market. If there's something that the Australians aren't liking, maybe it's portion size, they want different toppings, this is where Chipotle really needs to step up and be flexible and be able to adapt to the local environment. Chipotle already kind of does this here in the US. They kind of have rotating protein categories like the carne asada or the chicken al pastor. So a similar strategy I feel would be effective down under. Now with this strategy, I believe that they should start in the major cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, starting with about 3 to 5 stores. This is going to allow them to have a pilot program to really test the market and establish that supply chain, which is the backbone of Chipotle. One of the other things I believe they need to do is invest heavily in their membership reward program to keep that member retention. There's 2 types of categories of people that are going to come to Chipotle. They're either coming in because they know about Chipotle or they don't know. Regardless, you want to keep them coming in. I would recommend Chipotle reducing the barrier to entry. Right now it's about 7, maybe 10 entrees before you get a free reward. I would recommend reducing that to 3 to 4 to incentivize the customers to keep coming back in and come into Chipotle instead of going to one of the competitors. Now guys, to wrap this all up, I know we went over a lot, but I just want to talk about this. The Australian market is difficult to enter, but it has high growth potential. and I truly believe it would be a good expansion project for Chipotle. If they enter, I would recommend entering via a joint venture or a strategic alliance with that transnational strategy. They need to stay true to who they are with their core brand identity. Focus on food with integrity, because that's what's made them great. But they also need to beef up the rewards program to keep the Australians coming back in. If they do these proper steps, I truly believe that Chipotle could have one of their most profitable sectors within the next 10 years. Thank you guys for your time.
Questions for Eddie?
Emma?
Did you, I'm not sure if Chipotle does this, but do they franchise?
Yeah, Chipotle does do some franchises. They try to keep them more corporately owned, but there's an availability to franchise.
Was it not one of like the best options from the ones that you looked at?
Yeah, I don't believe it's a good option for Chipotle right now because that core brand identity of the food with integrity. When you put that franchise out, you could tell them that they need to follow these certain specifications and tell them the producers, but you lose a little bit of quality control. And especially with the recent things that have happened in the past few years, like the E. coli outbreaks and stuff like that, they've really started to clamp down on their franchisees and kind of try to bring everything back corporate.
Gotcha.
Do avocados grow in Australia?
I'm not sure if avocados grow in Australia. I was kind of rushing towards the end, but that was one of the things I wanted to talk about with the supply chain is there will be some items that they're probably going to have to import in, which are going to be like avocados and that, but there's like plenty of agriculture down, so tomatoes, chicken, all the meats they will be able to source locally, and I would say, in my assumption, maybe 80% will be sourced in Australia, and that other 20% they'd have to get overseas.
Yeah, good job. I like the focus on the health trends, application of the 5 forces. Did we talk about 5 forces in this class? I can't remember.
I don't believe so.
Okay. But yeah, the supply chain I think was like the key part of that, like you mentioned. So that aspect I think is worth delving into in their written reports as much as you can because, like you said, it's critical. That's core to the business model for them. And then like maybe trying to choose between if it's joint venture or alliance as an entry mode. Like great answer to Emma's question about the franchising. Probably JV would make the most sense if you're gonna work with a partner. I don't know that a lot of companies enter with an alliance because it is so informal,
Yeah.
But think about that. And then the competition I think was interesting too. You did a good job identifying competitors in that country. It seems like it's pretty fierce. So
Yeah.
you might give a thought to would they have any late mover advantages or would they have other ways of standing out from those competitors? And then finally, I think was with for some reason like the third presentation today, I think there's some confusion about international versus transnational. I think you were describing international, but then you called it transnational because you said stay core to the business model, but minor menu adaptations.
Yeah.
That's definitely sounds like international versus transnational. So just make sure those definitions are clear in the written report.
Of course.
But that was great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.